Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Sports World with Patrick, where we dive into the world of sports and speak to the people who are shaping the next generation of athletes. Today, we're in for a special treat. Our guest is none other than Paul Pooley, the associate head coach at the University of Notre Dame. Coach Pooley has been a key figure in the success of Notre Dame's hockey program, and today he's here to share his journey, coaching philosophy, and more, and the behind the scenes insights into what it takes to build a successful hockey program at one of the most prestigious universities in the countries. Coach Pooley, welcome to the Sports World, Patrick. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's always fun to do these things and share a little bit about hockey and developing players.
Obviously excited. Let's. I'm really excited to have you. So let's start with your background. You've had an incredible career, both as a player at Ohio State and including playing in the NHL and the AHL, and now as a coach. Can you take us through your journey in hockey? What inspired you to get into coaching after playing?
Well, that's I don't know how much time we have, but I grew up in a small town of Exeter, Ontario. So obviously, growing up in Ontario and in Canada, you obviously want to play hockey. We played all the sports, but hockey was kind of the main sport we wanted to play. And being in a small town, had to leave home when I was 17 to pursue my hockey dream because obviously the caliber of competition wasn't high enough. So I went to Toronto and played junior hockey there. And subsequently, after my junior career, ended up at Ohio State and had 4 great years there, played with a lot of really, really good players. And after that, was fortunate to sign with Winnipeg Jets for 3 years. The interesting thing, I made Winnipeg out of the training camp and then got sent down in November to the American League Sherbrooke, where we shared a farm club with Montreal Canadiens. So we had half and half. And that year we ended up winning the Calder Cup. And one of the things that was interesting is Patrik Reyes was one of our goalies that got called up from junior. So it was kind of the start of his career. He won the Calder Cup that year and then went into Montreal next year and won the Stanley Cup. So but I had a great 3 year career, and it was a lot of fun. Finish up in Fort Wayne my last year, and then actually got out of hockey to open up a business, a yogurt business, with my twin brother Perry in Dublin, Ohio. So I wasn't thinking about coaching; I was thinking about being an entrepreneur. And then the Ohio State job was open. The second year I was out. I volunteered the first year there, and it was open in August. And I said to my brother, "We both don't need to be here in the business." So ended up taking the assistant's job. And then the first time I stood behind the bench for a game, I'll always remember it. So this is what I want to do. It's exciting. And so I dove into coaching, and subsequently we're 3 years at Ohio State. And then when I left Ohio State to play pro, Lake Superior wasn't very good. When I came back, they were one of the best teams in the country. And I said to my wife, Kelly, we were watching the CCHA championships. I'd like to know what's going on up at Lake Superior. And don't you know, 3 weeks later, I get a phone call wondering if I wanted to go up and work with Jeff Jackson at Lake Superior. So we decided to do that, won 2 national championships, and went to Providence as a head coach for 11 years. And then when Jeff got this job at Notre Dame, said they had everything here to be successful. Why don't you come work with me? So 20 years later, we've had our partnership, and that's kind of how I got into coaching, not by kind of a choice that I made after I quit playing. So here we are 20 years later, and it's been a wonderful career for myself and my kids and my family.
That's incredible, Coach. And coaching at a place like Notre Dame must come with its own set of challenges and rewards. What do you think sets Notre Dame apart from other programs, both in terms of hockey and student athlete experience?
Well, you said the student athlete experience. Like our kids, like I'm so impressed with the student athletes we have here because school is such a big part of their lives. Like our kids need to be in class. And I know a lot of universities have online classes. We really don't. So our kids are in class all the time. It's a competitive classroom because the regular student that comes here is very, very intelligent, and it probably the top 5% of their classes coming out of high school. So the commitment our kids make to school and hockey, and then being involved with the community, which is one of the pillars for Notre Dame. I'm so impressed with the kids we get the opportunity to coach.
That's obviously a great approach. Obviously, I've gotten to be at Notre Dame a few times. Actually, I think it was last season, or not this very last season, but the season before. Did a full season of just Notre Dame hockey home games. But speaking of preparation, Notre Dame has had some big success in recent years, and also some down years recently. NCAA tournament appearances, big wins, and developing NHL talent like Landon Slaggert, like Graham Slaggert. What do you think has been the key to building that success?
Well, I think the foundation of what we're all about is a hockey program is extremely important, because we have a certain type of culture here. I always say not everybody can come to Notre Dame because of the academics and the commitment to that. And then we also want the kids that want to turn out to be pro hockey players. So it's a nice balance. But I think the culture, I think Jeff Jackson has done a great job of building a culture here of what we're all about. And it is about hockey, it is about developing. But the type of kids we get here are driven, and they're driven not just on the ice, but they're driven in the classroom and then being good people in the community. So getting to work with them is certainly a byproduct of who they are as people. But I think in terms of developing players, like we have a great, I guess, mindset that we want to continue to get better no matter who we are. And we have extra skill stuff that we do in the mornings on Tuesdays. We have all kinds of video that we do with the kids. We have teaching sessions. So I think it's just a full round commitment, a strength and conditioning, sports psychology, nutrition, on ice development, watching video. I think it's a whole plan that we have in place for player development, and we've been very successful at doing it.
And obviously, you guys have one of the newer rinks in the Big Ten. I know that at Compton Family Ice Arena, and it's such a special rink to be at. Coach, you've worked with some incredible players during your time. Can you tell us about a few players who've stood out to you over the years and what makes them special?
Well, I think the first one I remember is Anders Lee, scoring 3 goals as a freshman in his first game. But just what an incredible human being he is. Leadership qualities as a freshman, as a sophomore, you can tell that, he was an unbelievable leader, just the way he went about his business. And obviously, signed after his junior year with the Islanders, and then obviously went on to be a captain with them and still is, and got his 500 point and, captain and one of the NHL recognized as the community leaders. I remember Anders Bjork, quite honestly. Anders wanted to be on the ice all the time. So we'd go out Tuesday mornings, then we'd go out Wednesday mornings. He just was a rink rat. And, when he signed after his junior year, he was involved with 40% of our goal production, whether goals and assists or being on the ice. And so it was kind of time for him to leave. Andrew Peak, who's playing with Boston now, was a kid that I worked with every Tuesday morning for 3 straight years, him and I on the ice working on his game. And he just wanted to become a hockey player. And at every level, he found a way to be successful. So you look at those 3 guys just in particular, but we've had a lot of guys that over the years that maybe haven't turned out to be NHL players, but have worked extremely hard to become the very best players they possibly can, doing whatever they needed to do, whether it's extra video or extra on ice sessions or just sitting down for a coffee and talking about their game. So that's one of the experiences I'll certainly remember here leaving Notre Dame as a type of kid that we have the opportunity to coach and how driven they are to be their best.
Now, obviously, Coach Pooley, coaching different players, you get different skill sets, and you guys have been very successful at developing these players to be the NHL talent that they are. How much has your coaching philosophy has had to change since you became a coach? In developing a lot of these players from different schools. At Ohio State, Providence, and at Notre Dame.
Well, you know what? I think the information these kids have at a young age and the coaching they have at a young age has certainly made them, I think, more knowledgeable about the game and skill development. They've had a lot more coaching than when I first started coaching. The kids were kind of like, hey, what's the coach say? This is what we do. When I was a player, coach says, do it, you do it. And now it's more of an interactive coaching style where you sit down. It's a two-way street. They got to be involved with the development and of themselves and being on the same page with you and have a conversation about what I see and what they see, and then come into a conclusion like, what do we want to work on? Because you can't work on 10 things. But the big thing I've always tried to do is define the kid what his game is, and then go from there. Because everybody's not a power play guy. Everybody's not going to be on the ice for 20 minutes a game. So everybody has a different role. And this kind of, this game is a game of roles and team commitment and people doing what they need to do to help the team become very successful. So that's the starting point for me. But everybody that comes here wants to be a good hockey player. So we sit down and try to analyze what they're good at, what they need to get better at, and have a two-way conversation about what the next step is. Just not telling them what to do, but actually being on the ice with them and help them become that player they want to become.
That's definitely amazing. And obviously, Notre Dame, as we keep mentioning, not only produces top level players, but also great people. Some of the nicest people that I meet on campus at Notre Dame are some of the hockey players that I've gotten to meet just by, going skating or something at Compton. You've been coaching for a long time. What's one piece of advice you would give to young coaches or aspiring coaches who are looking to make their mark in the world of hockey?
I think the most important thing is to be true who you are, because I think as a coach, I am who I am. We all have our personality traits and coaching styles. So I think being true to who you are as a person. I was just having a conversation about one of the coaches today with Dave Smith, who just got with RPI, just got let go. And we were talking about that. And he said the biggest thing is I always feel is you coach with integrity and coach with respect for the players that you're coaching, respect for the coaches that you're working with, because we're all here to support our student athletes, but do it with integrity and be true to who you are as a person.
And so, Coach, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to throw a few fun questions and lighten things up a little bit. So here's the first one.
Okay.
If you weren't coaching hockey, what sport would you be involved in?
What sport would I be involved in? Probably golf.
That's a really good one. If you
Well,
could
obviously,
have
hockey
any,
players, you got the summer off. You learn to
I
golf.
know.
But we got a great group of guys here at Notre Dame that golf, and we see each other at the golf course all the time. But what a great sport for you just to be able to do socially. But I think it's a great sport mentally. I've always tried to get my son. He's a golfer now, but when he was younger, to play golf, because it's the only sport in the world. If you get mad and get more intense, you get terrible at, get worse at. So you got to learn to stay within yourself. And I think golf teaches that a lot. And also forget about the last putt you made. If you missed it, you got to go on and get off the tee the next hole. So having a short memory is important too.
Yeah, I've had a lot of hockey players tell me that, who I've had on the podcast, that golf is the one sport that they would rather do if they couldn't do hockey, and then that's also like what they would do during the summer. So for the next one, if you could have dinner with any sports figure, past or present, who would it be and why?
I would say Tom Brady, for whatever just pops in my head, just because of the way he's overcome things in his life. He wasn't even a starting quarterback at University of Michigan. He was put in when they were behind, and then his senior year, he turned out to be a good player. And I spent obviously a lot of time at Providence, so they were in the New England's heyday when they were winning all those championships. So I mean, there's other people, but he comes to mind just because of what he's overcome and how he's continued to get more and more successful. And now he's in a broadcasting, and how he spent a whole year trying to become the best broadcaster he could be. And then obviously his life lessons about continuing to improve and overcome.
Yeah, that's actually a really good choice on that one. Now here's a very fun one. What's your go-to pre-game meal?
I kind of eat light, to be honest with you. So like, are you talking about as a player? Obviously, I had a baked potato, chicken, and some vegetables, and a little bit of a salad. I had my protein, I had my carb. But I try to eat light. As a coach, I don't eat that much. I just eat a sandwich at 2 o'clock and then get to the rink. So as a player, it was more chicken and baked potato and a vegetable.
And then for the last fun question, if you could instantly become an expert in any skill outside of hockey, what would it be?
Investing. I think if it was easy,
That's
everybody'd be doing it.
yeah.
I love reading about stocks and companies and investing. So that would be something I would do if I wasn't doing the hockey thing, and things that if I could be really an expert at, I would certainly do that. So I say in life, it's always good to have more or less of one thing. It's better to have more money than less money, and because it's a tool for your life.
That's obviously fantastic, Coach. But before we wrap up, I am gonna have two more questions for you here. You were just talking about how golf can make you mentally think, and we know mental toughness is always required to succeed in hockey. But what has been something that you have personally done to stay mentally sharp, both in your roles when you were a player and when you were a coach, and what are like the main situations that you teach your players to stay mentally sharp throughout a season? Because I know everybody wants to win, but when the losses start piling up, it starts to become, some players become mentally, or not mentally, but they become more mentally exhausted. And on top of that, physical toughness. What's the biggest thing that you teach your players on that too?
Well, I think as a player, I always remember I tried out for the 1984 Canadian Olympic team. And I can tell you, I thought I should have made the team. Like, I didn't play up to my expectations. At the regional camp, I was the best player on the ice. I went to the main camp, I was good, but after 10 days, I got cut. Mentally, I didn't perform the way I needed to. So my senior year at Ohio State, I got into sports psychology about reading books, seeing a guy talking about things through about what I feel on the ice. So that's one thing that I lived, because sports psychology back then was like, "Ooh, you're weak," but it was something I tried to dive into to help me personally. And then, as in terms of a coach, I think just sitting down with players. I have a young man, Max Ellis, who signed after his junior year here, didn't play much as a freshman. A sophomore, played more as a junior, ended up having 16 or 17 goals and signed with Toronto. So I would sit down with Max in video or just one-on-one and help him through situations that he had challenges with, whether it was, competitive situations or scoring situations or self-confidence. And, we try to do that with all our guys and divide up our players, because it's one of the things that it's really, really important. Because having a girl and a son and a daughter that play Division I sports, my son still plays pro. I've kind of been through all the ups and downs of being an athlete personally, and then seeing them. So I can use that to help our athletes, because I kind of know what they're thinking, even though they don't tell you. If they're struggling on the ice, or they're struggling to get in the lineup, or they're not scoring. So I think just having a personal relationship and being honest with them, but being there for them and giving them somebody that is a sounding board is extremely important, because they need to, like, we all get internal when we lose confidence versus need to get external and ask people for help, or talk to people, or talk to your coaches. So we try to be in tune, and I try to be in tune with who needs a good conversation. Maybe it's over coffee, maybe it's come over for dinner, let's watch some video, or whatever the case is. And I think that's one of the things in today's world that we really need to stay in touch with our not only our student athletes, but our kids or our athletes in general.
That's a really good thing to hear. Obviously, mental toughness can be hard for athletes. And so, my very last question here for you, Coach, today is, obviously Notre Dame has had some success in the Big Ten, and I know the last few years have sort of been down years so far. But what do you look for the future of Notre Dame hockey? I know you guys have been pretty close to winning the national championship a few times here and there.
Well, I think it's
As
just
a
it's just handling the landscape that's changing. With the NIL, with the scholarship limits, with kids coming to be a pro versus getting a degree at times, the ability for kids to transfer if they're not happy at a school. I think that's the key moving forward in any program. But Notre Dame, we want to stay true to who we are. It's a student athlete experience, but we also want to win championships. So for us at Notre Dame, just trying to manage the landscape and make it work for who we are as a school and a program is probably the most important thing for us to be successful. And at the end of the day, we want our kids to graduate and have a life outside of hockey when they're done playing. Like a look at Brian Rust, stayed here 4 years. Jake Evans stayed here 4 years. Are great NHL players, but they also are good people and will have an opportunity to do something outside of hockey when they're done with the Notre Dame degree. And that's kind of what we emphasize and promote, because I think it's a real big bonus, especially with the major junior, being able to be recruited. Those kids that are good students are going to want to go to a good school, because if they're not ready for pro right now, they have 4 more years to play. But when they're done, they have a degree from the University of Notre Dame. And in today's world, I think having a degree from a good school is a certainly helps you get in the door with companies or a career versus not having a degree. And I think Notre Dame separates itself with that. And the network that we have is something we promote as well in terms of our student athletes and when they're done.
And Coach Pooley, I do want to ask this question because you did bring up the new scholarship limit that will be coming with the new revenue sharing agreement that the NCAA has with in that new lawsuit. Do you think that will end up making the game of college hockey that much more competitive, or you think that's gonna somewhat grow the sport even more?
I think it could help the smaller programs with the major junior players. I think it's going to hurt the smaller programs when it comes to revenue sharing. Like, you need money to be successful, because ultimately, let's be honest, you're buying players. Look at football, look at basketball. It's going to happen in hockey too. Like it's already has. Like, you're buying players. So who has money to offer the better players money to come play at their school? That's the disappointing.
Yeah,
So I think the upper tier is going to be separated. I think the opening of major junior might help balance it out a little bit, because not everybody can go to the same schools, like the Big Ten schools, the North Dakotas and the NCHA schools, hockey schools. Like the Ivies are not in the revenue sharing. They decided not to do that. So the landscape's going to change, but that's where each program's got to find a way to be successful and manage what they do.
yeah, that's been one thing that I've had a few conversations with behind the scenes with people is all about this revenue sharing. And some coaches that I've talked to and other hockey people, because I do spend some time in Plymouth during the summer with some of
Mhm.
the USA hockey people there, and they were looking at it a little bit concerned at the revenue sharing, what it's going to do for their players. But obviously, at the end of the day, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, no, and if you're a good player, you're going to make money. Let's
Yeah,
be
that's
honest,
that
right?
is true. That is true.
Money,
Yeah, yeah, that's
right? Like, if you're a
yeah.
good athlete, you can promote yourself and go out to the highest bidder.
Oh
That's
yeah,
kind of
that's
the reality. Like, we're sugarcoating, but that's it. You're not sugarcoating it now. Like, this is it. You're a good player. You're going to make a lot of money.
yeah. It's definitely starting to look more like a pro sport model than a college sport model.
Well, I always say you're not building a team anymore. You're building
That's true.
a roster with the most talent you can get.
Yeah, because it's definitely going to be, I think, interesting because on top of that, like I've talked to a few players here and there. I was actually talking to one player who is on the women's side of hockey, and she was very like, yeah, I think it's gonna be good and this and that, but obviously, I guess time will tell on this.
Well, and it's about your brand too. Everybody's trying to develop their own brands so they can be marketable to people that want to have them as their spokesman, or wear their product, or market their product, or follow them on Instagram, because you see a lot of people that are in the lower level, not lower level, but like gymnastics or women's basketball or other sports that are like huge influencers because they have all the following. So it's
Yeah,
about brand marketing for yourself. And we're at Notre Dame. We have people that can help us here. So we try to promote that as well.
yeah. Well, that's obviously been a great. It's obviously been a great experience to get your perspective, Coach, on everything. Thank you so much for joining me today, and for sharing your experiences. It's clear your leadership and dedication to both the players and the game have made you such a great asset at Notre Dame. And for all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Sports with Patrick. Until next time, keep working hard, stay true, and have fun.